everyone. Thanks, Stuart, for basically nicking my intro. But and also thanks to Phil for an excellent keynote. I just don't think you realise some of you have got to follow it, but thanks, man. So I'm Dave Kendon. This is my talk on TDD in the real world, and I've just realised, these are supposed to look like road signs, and they're UK specific, maybe even Scottish specific to an international audience, so please bear with the theme of it. And this population, everyone but you, is a kind of a feeling I get with some of the frustrations of TDDing with JavaScript. So every now and then I'll run into this wall and I'm like, how are other people doing this so well? And I'll get into those frustrations as well. That's my Twitter handle up there, the bangline_. By all means, add me and get in touch if you've got any feedback or comments or opinions on what I'm about to talk to. It's a topic I've got a lot of interest in. So, as Stuart was saying, I work here in Edinburgh. I work for Carbon, fantastic little using JS, Ruby, iOS, Android. We also do hardware projects. We're always looking for fantastic developers like yourself. So, by all means, if that sounds interesting, catch up with me around the conference. Sorry, let's see how that's going. And or hit me up. Does that mean too noisy? First. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. Cheers. Back. And also organise GlasgowJS. Again, I've got this platform, I'm going to try and use it as much as I can. We're always looking for speakers. We love to have you physically in the building, but remote speaking is also more than welcome. So again, if that interests you, just catch me up around the conference or hit me up online. And at GlasgowJS, there's two topics I can pretty much guarantee are going to be pretty popular and draw a large crowd. And one of them is frameworks, which my colleague is going to be talking about later on this morning. And the other one's testing. And when I get in, I've been doing TDD for quite a while now, and the spectrum of the people who attend GlasgowJS is quite wide. And we do get a lot of people who are kind of new to this TDD, and they're coming up with real, tangible frustrations, and it's frustrations which I've came across myself because it's hard to kind of break that barrier. And I guess the talk is more of this kind of eureka moment I had a few years ago, and I'm still kind of trying to hone my skill on that. But, most of the potential barriers come from is this kind of introduction to TDD. You're usually presented a sterile example first, and then, shown how to test it using Test Framework X. And it's teaching you how to test, but it's not teaching you TDD. And what usually I hear is, testing's hard, I'm not very productive with it. And these are all real things that I've felt also in the past and feel on a daily basis as well. And if you take the knowledge you gather from something like this, and then go out and try and TDD a client project, you are ultimately going to get a lot of pain out of it because you know how to test, but you don't know TDD. You don't have this methodology of test-driven development. And it kind of gets me to thinking about why I got into TDD. Because I'm talking about all of this frustration, and a lot of it's all just coming from trying to tick that box of being a good developer. And I got into TDD because a lot of people, a lot smarter than me, told me I should get into TDD. And they'd rhyme off the benefits of why I should TDD, and they always look something like this. It's a non-exhaustive list. I've seen much, much more. A couple of them I wrote down, what my thoughts, the benefits of TDD. But this is just some of the common ones you see, such as fewer defects, better code quality, maintainability. That's also like changeability. This whole idea of living documentation, because we all keep our doc strings up to date, and regression protection. But if we look back at the example, which we our kind of intro to TDD, that simple adder function, then yeah, you can see that it's defect free, it's correct. excellent. It has documentation, it tells you what each, it has a specification for each of your tests, and it's got regression testing, but was it quality? Was it maintainable, or was it changeable? Would you, it's probably maintainable enough, but is that those two subjective criteria were things that I started to get a little bit interested in. Because I've came to projects, large code bases with lots and lots of tests, and they all go green, so by definition I know that TDD has given correctness. But it doesn't mean that it's quality or maintainable. I've certainly been in a position where changing one little piece of code starts breaking tests all over the place, and I've got a lot of expensive setup to do again. So the code base, having lots of tests, those tests actually start to become a burden, and it ends up with the big refactor jobs. Even though you're finished the piece of work which you came there to do, you're still spending most of your time fixing all the tests you've broken. So this is when, as obvious as it sounds, and I'm hoping that I'm not the only one who took a while to catch on to this, but it might only have been me, but at that light bulb moment where I was like, so the correctness and the documentation, they're byproducts of trying to develop my code in a maintainable structure first. So if I use my test to get that maintainability and quality, and qualities are really, really subjective stuff, but the refactor cycle of the TDD is probably more around quality. But if I use that TDD as a tool to get maintainable code, then the correctness is almost like the byproduct of my tests. So since that point, I've been striving to meet that maintainable, mostly coupled criteria first. And that takes you into TDD itself. Says exactly what it does in the tin. But the development word is probably the one which has never sat so well to me, because it encompasses your first two letters of the acronym, the test-driven part of it. Development to me is such a large church of what that actually is. So I don't really see how I can get maintainable stuff out of a word that's encompassing, writing a test, watching it fail, making it pass, then refactoring. So I went for design. And I'm sure I'm not the first person to coin this phrase. I'm not looking for any credit on that stuff. But, so by treating this correctness and documentation as byproducts, and actually placing emphasis on how my code hangs together, to see how to get a maintainable structure to my code, that means I can just get in and out before anyone's noticed and make a change without breaking too many tests, and getting that maintainability into my tests and into the testing, because I need something to call on and act on in my test, gives me that opportunity. So by placing that emphasis on the design of my code to drive my tests, I'm getting a little bit more out of the TDD cycle. And it's easy to lose sight of design when you're just diving in at your keyboard to try and start writing tests. And when you start thinking about design, there seems to be a bit of stigma attached to the design. You will usually hear terms like BDUF or big design up front, and you're right, that stuff is bad. Trying to design your code down to the lowest minutiae is going to tie you in knots, because you're going to be down dealing with some really low level stuff, and meanwhile your absolute public API of the code you're trying to write is just a mess and impossible to use. But using that trying to find that right balance of getting to design isn't a bad thing. Designing your code is not all bad. Now, when you see an experienced developer pick up a story and then sit down and then get his hands straight on the keyboard and then all of a sudden start churning out real code and real production code, that's not a secret sauce. That's real experience there, because by the time this developer's hands have reached the keyboard, they already have with picture or a mental model of how their code's going to hang together, what tests they're going to use to try and validate this design. It's just they forget to tell us that stuff, and we just I get envious of them and say, how are you doing this? And so once I've grasped that, and maybe I'm making too much assumptions to make myself feel better about not being one of those developers. For mere mortals like myself, I try to kick off by getting a grasp of what I'm actually trying to build first. And I also try to get a picture in my head of what an acceptance criteria of that looks like. And then I start to scribble. And I start scribbling down just lots of words, lots of things which I might use within the code or feature I'm about to implement. And these can be, there's no structure to this kind of part of it. I'm just basically writing down names of things, concepts, ideas I'm getting in my head that, you know, I may or may not use, and it can be things like objects or models or properties, even down to variable names. And by the end of that, what I've tried to do is break down the problem at hand. And I also get the vocabulary of my domain, because I find naming stuff hard as well. And up in the corner there, I probably went a little bit overkill. I don't go too deep into anything like UML. I will sometimes go into, this is a UML sequence diagram, and it's probably for me, it's the only useful artifact of the whole UML process, and it kind of shows, you know, the interactions of different collaborating objects in my system and the sequence of those interactions and what those interactions are. And so once I've kind of got all that in my head, then I can start going into, I've got an idea of what my code's going to look like, and then I'm going to start writing tests. Now, it's completely feasible that all my design is flawed, but I've got an automated test suite and I have a quick feedback loop. So I'll be able to find these like bad points in my design and react to it accordingly. Yes, I went in there with an idea. It's certainly better than going in with the what kind of idea of not really understanding anything, which I was previously doing, and expecting these tests to magically produce me quality maintainable code. And so once I've kind of got all of that, I can't really talk about this without demonstrating some kind of example. So here I've kind of just picking a star rating widget. Now, trying to avoid going back to this example, which I was saying was a problem, and I should also point out there's some excellent tutorials online for you know, honing your TDD skills. Just that happens to be a common one, and it's one that I probably got segued into my first instance. So I'm going to look at a star rating thing. So if you imagine on Amazon giving a rating out of 5 stars or whatever for some video or DVD. And I feel that example kind of covers enough of what I call the sticky stuff when covering TDD with JavaScript, because I'm going to start looking at DOMs, and I'm going to start looking at server AJAX asynchronous interactions as well. So I think there's enough there to try and feel all that up. So it's not going to be too fancy, but it's just going to touch on some of this stuff. And I'm going to just talk about some of the tools I use to get there, because I really need to break up my code to have something callable and hookable into. And for anything that touches the front end, it goes through Browserify for me first. Thanks for giving me a couple of tips and resources as well for getting started on that, because when it came to it, it was really daunting. It's like, this looks hard, but after a bit of reading, a bit of experimentation, I managed to get into that as well. I don't have a particular test framework which I love and always turn to. I'm quite happy with all of them. The examples are going to be written in Mocha with Chai expectations, but Jasmine's pretty good as well. I've got a wee affinity with QUnit just for its simplicity. I should also say I don't use anything like Grunt or Gulp or anything. People can be really productive with it. I'm just not one of those people, and I kind of just stick with, you know, npm test and npm run, whatever kind of tool chain I want in there. And because I also don't use a browser test runner, I prefer to just use a CLI command runner. I'll usually use things like JSDOM, which will kind of mock out a DOM for me, especially when I'm going to start using libraries like jQuery, which we all essentially do. So for creating my star rating widget, I've basically set up a new star rating object. Nothing exists at this point, and I'm going to start getting fails about, you know, this star rating object doesn't exist. So I can start to make that pass and build all that up just by creating a new class of star rating. I'm requiring it in at some point where I'm saying require up 1 level star rating. And then I'm just wanting to call render, so I'm actually wanting to render a DOM. Now, you've probably seen a lot of talks that say, you know, don't test the DOM, and I'm not saying that they are wrong. It's just that if I'm doing something which is quite DOM heavy, I'm going to get in there and I'm actually going to test the DOM. And you also see people extract away things like jQuery into, treat it like a total isolated third-party library. You don't want to double you on, but I don't tend to do that either. I'm writing DOM code, and there's a good argument saying about what if you swap out jQuery for something else, then yeah, it's never happened. I've never swapped out jQuery for anything else or for a Zepto or anything like that. And if I ever was to, because I'm using this nice common JS pattern, which I'm getting with Browserify, that kind of process has all been kind of taken away from me, so I just need to create a new wrapper around my new DOM manipulation library that kind of fits the old contract and just update my require statements everywhere. And so you can see here I'm injecting like the div element into the star rating, and I'm treating that in my assertions on like 12 and 13. I'm using jQuery methods to say actually once I render on this I should begin to see my star rating. And to make all that pass, it's not too hard. I've created like this kind of pseudo template. You can see it's kind of borrowing heavily from a kind of a backbone kind of style. I've got this render method of taking an L. I've not called it a $L, but yeah, it's an L, and then I'm just exporting out my star rating as well. And then the render, all it does is take that template, which is nothing more than a string, and just pending that into my container. So that was pretty easy, because testing the DOM, it doesn't always have to be hard. There's certainly areas where I probably wouldn't test the DOM, and that kind of stuff falls into when I'm looking at animations. I have tested things like animations using like a Synon library to kind of hook into the timer and then do ticks to see how much, but I didn't feel I got any. It was a long, hard process to get to that point, but I didn't feel a lot of value out of it, because that again is something subjective, and I don't want to test something subjective. I want to test, is it true, is it false, is it equal to this, or is it not? And so we're going to need some interaction on this stuff now, which kind of just leads into click handlers. Now, when we click on something, I'm wanting to talk to like an API. Now, I'm talking about not wrapping up jQuery, but I will wrap parts of it, because I've not got it to hand, but when I was scribbling out my notes, one of the things I wrote down was a rating service, because it would be nice for my code to just call on this rating service. I can call a method, add rating, and it will handle something for me. And I don't want to worry about that. So in my tests, I create this made-up object, my rating service spy, which is doing nothing more than capturing its arguments and storing it in a kind of internal array to it. And then I'm also injecting this into my constructor for my new star rating. And this is all I've done so far. I've made up this mock object. I've kind of defined a contract for what my rating service is going to have. So it's going to have an add rating function. And I'm expecting, for that add rating function to take a few parameters. And I can expect from those parameters, the first one to be a piece of data, the rating as I'm actually posting. And then I can also expect to have a success callback and a failure callback. And kind of just the nice part about doing it like this on line 27 here, you can see that I'm checking a value in the rating service. And then what I'm doing on line 31, still using the same spy, I'm actually just hooking in and calling the callback, the success callback directly with whatever piece of data I decide. And this gives me two benefits. It means I can start like pushing edge cases in my callbacks, without having to get tied up in creating all these name functions everywhere on my service object. And I've not yielded control of my test. Mocha has a lot of this async testing where I'm waiting on done and has timeouts otherwise, whereas I don't particularly like doing that. I've got a function there, and I can now, it's sitting in a callback, and I can now just poke and prod it as much as I want based on whatever parameters my test cases is giving me. And I can do all this without a huge amount of expensive setup, because testing, if your setup's hard, then you're going to have a hard time testing. I'd like to have my testing nice and cheap and easy. And then we get to the implementation, and whoa, it's maintainable, but I wouldn't say it's the prettiest thing I've ever written in my life. You can see a lot of this kind of binding this kind of stuff on line 33, and that's just kind of the world I'm living in within the DOM, and kind of having this test suite makes it quite easy for me to kind of flush all this stuff out early doors. And it might make me start thinking, boy, is that code ugly, and why am I passing in the constructors? Should I maybe have a look at something else for my dependency injection to make my tests look a bit nicer without having to just inject it in? So I can use something like a proxy require to stub out that require statement for the service, and then I can start looking at maybe I should just use backbone instead of like trying to create my own thing every time. And you know, it kind of starts to feel weird because we're creating all these mocks and stubs, and is our interfaces and our contracts always going to be correct? But that's kind of where another level of testing then steps in, your integration tests, which I guess is another talk all on its own. From my experience, I only create these full stack integration tests, which kind of poke on my collaborating objects at once when my code base starts getting too large to manually regress it. And it's probably another good point, when if I've got collaborating objects, I try not to swap out my mock implementations of them when I have the physical real objects, because what that usually finds is it starts bleeding out into other tests. So if I make a test on like a user object, which has an account, and then all of a sudden I make a change in a user object, if I haven't carried across the same setup into my account test, I start getting, you know, little dots of failure everywhere. So that's kind of, it's that idea of getting in and out with, you know, at least path of resistance. Yes, you might feel like you've not got the confidence in there, but as long as you keep maintaining your contracts and running a full suite every time, you'll usually find that's okay. Now, thanks, I hope that's helped someone. I'm upstairs, I'm really looking forward to any questions or comments or feedback you've got on it, so hopefully I'll catch upstairs and I hope I've helped. So, cheers.